For many years, Chip and Joanna Gaines have been seen as the picture of the perfect American family. Millions of viewers around the world know them from their television shows, their home renovation projects, and the Magnolia brand they built together. On screen, their lives look joyful and balanced. They transform old houses into beautiful homes while raising a happy family. But behind the cameras and the polished television image, the Gaines family has faced several private struggles that most fans never knew about. One of the biggest challenges in their story began long before Joanna Gaines ever became famous. Long before television, before Magnolia, and before millions of fans knew her name, Joanna was simply a high school student growing up in Texas. Like many teenagers, she had hobbies and passions that filled her daily life. One of those passions was cheerleading. During the 1990s, cheerleading was changing rapidly. It was no longer just about waving pom-poms on the sidelines of football games. Instead, it was becoming a demanding and competitive sport. Teams began performing complex stunts that required strength, trust, and perfect timing. Cheerleaders were expected to jump higher, flip faster, and perform daring tricks that thrilled crowds but also carried serious risks. Joanna was deeply involved in this world. She practiced hard with her teammates and worked to perfect difficult routines. One of the most dramatic stunts performed in cheerleading is called a basket toss. In this stunt, several cheerleaders lock their hands together to form a platform. The flyer, usually a smaller cheerleader, is launched high into the air. At the peak of the jump, the flyer performs a move or flip before being caught by the team below. Joanna often served as the flyer. That meant she was the one thrown high into the air during these stunts. Normally, everything depended on precise timing. The teammates had to catch the flyer perfectly to ensure a safe landing. But one day during a routine, something went wrong. As Joanna was tossed into the air, the timing of the catch failed. Instead of landing safely in her teammates' arms, she fell directly toward the ground. The fall was sudden and violent. Because she had been launched high into the air, the impact carried a powerful force when she landed. The force of that fall landed directly on her lower back, an area known as the lumbar spine. This part of the spine supports much of the body's weight and allows people to bend and twist. When Joanna hit the ground, the impact damaged the soft discs between the bones in her spine. These discs normally act like cushions that absorb shock. But after the fall, those cushions were injured. At the time, Joanna did what many young athletes do when they get hurt. Instead of stopping completely and seeking serious medical attention, she tried to push through the pain. In competitive sports, athletes often believe that pain is something to ignore. There's a strong culture that encourages people to keep going, even when their bodies are trying to warn them that something is wrong. Joanna likely believed the pain would eventually fade. She continued her daily activities, hoping the soreness would heal on its own. For a while, she managed to live with the discomfort, but the injury had already started a slow and dangerous process inside her body. Over time, the damage to her spine began to worsen. What had started as a sudden injury slowly developed into a degenerative condition. This means that the structure of the spine gradually began to wear down. Everyday movements started placing stress on the injured discs in her lower back. Lifting heavy objects, standing for long hours, or even walking could aggravate the damaged area. The more strain placed on the spine, the weaker the discs became. Despite this growing problem, Joanna continued building her life. She moved forward with her career, her relationships, and eventually her family. From the outside, everything looked perfectly normal. But behind the scenes, she was quietly dealing with chronic pain that few people knew about. For years, she managed the condition privately. The pain was always present, sometimes mild and sometimes intense. But she continued pushing forward, determined not to let it stop her from living the life she wanted. Eventually, however, the damage reached a breaking point. By the early 2000s, Joanna could no longer ignore what was happening in her body. The injury that had begun years earlier during a cheerleading stunt had slowly developed into a serious medical problem. Her back pain had intensified, and new symptoms began appearing that made daily life difficult. The most alarming symptom was a condition known as sciatica. This happens when a damaged disc presses against the sciatic nerve, the largest nerve in the human body. The sciatic nerve runs from the lower back down through the hips and legs. When this nerve becomes compressed, it can cause sharp, shooting pain that travels through the body. For Joanna, the pain started in her lower back and extended down her leg. It was not just uncomfortable, it was often unbearable. Along with the pain came another frightening symptom: numbness. When nerves are compressed for too long, they stop sending signals properly. This can make parts of the body feel weak, heavy, or even completely numb. Simple activities began to feel impossible. Bending over, standing at the kitchen sink, or lifting everyday objects became extremely difficult. The condition had reached a point where she could no longer manage it alone. At that stage, doctors told her that surgery was the only option left. The procedure she needed was called a microdiscectomy, a delicate operation designed to remove the damaged part of the disc that was pressing on the nerve. While the surgery offered hope for relief, it also marked the beginning of a long and challenging journey for Joanna. Little did she know that this medical battle, one that started with a cheerleading accident years earlier, would continue to shape her life for decades to come. When Joanna Gaines finally reached the point where the pain in her back could no longer be ignored, doctors confirmed what she had been fearing for years. The injury that started during her cheerleading days had caused serious damage to the discs in her lower spine. The pressure on the sciatic nerve had grown so severe that simple movements were becoming almost impossible. Walking, bending, and even standing for long periods sent waves of sharp pain through her body. At that stage, doctors explained that surgery was the best option to relieve the pressure on the nerve and prevent the condition from getting worse. The procedure recommended for Joanna was called a microdiscectomy. While the name sounds complicated, the idea behind the surgery is actually quite straightforward. The human spine is made up of bones called vertebrae. Between those bones are small, soft discs that act like shock absorbers. These discs allow the spine to move smoothly while also protecting the bones from rubbing together. When a disc becomes damaged, the soft inner material can push outward. This is known as a herniated disc. When that bulging disc presses against a nerve, especially the sciatic nerve, it causes intense pain and numbness. The goal of a microdiscectomy is to remove the small piece of the damaged disc that is pressing against the nerve. During the surgery, doctors make a small incision in the patient's back. Using specialized tools and a microscope, the surgeon carefully locates the damaged disc. Then they remove only the tiny fragment that is pushing on the nerve. Once the pressure is removed, the nerve can begin to heal and the pain usually improves. For Joanna, undergoing this surgery in 2001 was a major turning point. At the time, she was not yet the television personality that millions of people would later recognize. She was simply trying to live a normal life without constant pain. The recovery period after spinal surgery is not quick. Joanna had to take things slowly. Her body needed time to heal, and she had to rebuild the strength in the muscles that support the spine. This meant focusing on careful physical therapy, gentle exercises, and avoiding movements that could cause another injury. Gradually, she began to feel better. The sharp nerve pain that had once shot down her leg started to fade. She regained mobility and was able to return to everyday activities. For a while, it seemed as though the surgery had solved the problem. As the years passed, Joanna built the life that many people now admire. She married Chip Gaines, started a family, and together they built the Magnolia brand. Their television show became incredibly popular, and millions of viewers watched them transform homes and inspire families across the country. But even though the surgery had helped, the injury to Joanna's back had not completely disappeared. Every now and then, she would feel small reminders of the weakness in her spine. Certain movements or long days on her feet could bring back brief moments of pain. Still, she continued moving forward. Then, more than 2 decades after her first surgery, the problem returned in a dramatic and unexpected way. In late 2022, Joanna experienced a sudden and intense flare-up of the same back pain she had struggled with years earlier. This time, the pain was even more severe. It came at one of the busiest times of the year for the Gaines family. December is usually a hectic month for their businesses. The Magnolia Market, the restaurants, and all their projects experience a surge of visitors during the holiday season. On top of managing these businesses, Joanna was also focused on making the holidays special for her 5 children. But the pain in her back had become impossible to ignore. What had once been a manageable discomfort suddenly turned into constant, sharp pain that made everyday tasks extremely difficult. It was clear that something serious was happening again inside her spine. Doctors examined her condition and delivered difficult news. The damaged disc in her lower back had once again begun pressing against a nerve. The only real solution was another surgery. This meant Joanna was facing a second microdiscectomy, more than 20 years after her first one. However, this surgery was more complicated than the first. When doctors operate on the same area of the spine again, they must deal with something called scar tissue. After any surgery, the body naturally forms scar tissue as part of the healing process. While this tissue helps repair the area, it can also make future procedures more difficult. Scar tissue can stick to surrounding structures, including delicate nerves. For the surgeon, this makes it harder to clearly see where the damaged disc ends and where the nerve begins. The risk of complications becomes higher, and the procedure requires extreme precision. Because of this, Joanna's second surgery required careful planning and skill. Instead of hiding what she was going through, Joanna decided to share a glimpse of the experience with her followers. She posted a photo from her hospital bed, wearing a hospital gown and sunglasses while flashing a small peace sign to the camera. For many fans, the image was surprising. People were used to seeing Joanna as the calm, confident designer who always seemed in control. She was known for creating beautiful spaces and maintaining a composed presence on television. But in this photo, she looked like any other patient recovering from surgery. The image revealed a more vulnerable side of her life. By sharing that moment, Joanna showed something important to the people who follow her story. Even those who appear strong and successful can face physical struggles. Sometimes the healthiest decision a person can make is to slow down and focus on healing. Her message was simple but powerful. Taking care of your health should always come first. As Joanna rested in the hospital and began the long recovery process again, she had time to reflect on everything her family had experienced in recent years. One memory in particular stood out, a moment when the health of her unborn child had suddenly become the subject of intense public attention. Years earlier, when Joanna and Chip announced they were expecting their 5th child, the news had spread quickly across social media. Fans were excited to see the Gaines family growing again. But a single ultrasound photo would soon spark a wave of concern and speculation that none of them had expected. The situation would turn into a massive online debate, leaving millions of people wondering whether the Gaines family was facing another serious medical crisis. In 2018, Chip and Joanna Gaines surprised their fans with news that no one had expected. After years of raising 4 children and building a massive business empire, the couple revealed that they were expecting another baby. The announcement spread quickly across social media, and millions of followers reacted with excitement and curiosity. At the time, their youngest child was already 8 years old. Many people had assumed that the Gaines family was finished growing. Between their successful television show, their businesses, and the responsibilities of raising 4 kids, their lives already seemed incredibly full. But the couple shared that they were about to welcome a 5th child into the world. The news brought joy to fans everywhere. Supporters flooded their social media pages with congratulations and warm messages. People loved watching the Gaines family grow, and the idea of a new baby added another chapter to their already inspiring story. However, the mood surrounding the pregnancy suddenly shifted when Joanna posted a photo from one of her prenatal doctor visits. The picture showed an ultrasound image of the baby developing inside her womb. In the modern world of social media, even a simple photo can quickly become the subject of intense analysis. People zoom in on details, compare images, and sometimes jump to conclusions without having the full story. That is exactly what happened with Joanna's ultrasound photo. Some viewers began pointing out something they believed looked unusual in the image. A few people, including individuals who claimed to have medical experience, suggested that there appeared to be an unusual amount of fluid around the baby. Within hours, the internet began buzzing with speculation. A growing number of comments suggested that the baby might be suffering from a rare and serious medical condition known as hydrops. This condition occurs when excessive fluid builds up in different areas of a developing fetus, such as around the lungs, the heart, or under the skin. Hydrops is considered extremely dangerous. When fluid accumulates in multiple areas of a baby's body, it can place enormous stress on developing organs. In severe cases, it can lead to heart failure or other life-threatening complications before the baby is even born. Because of the seriousness of the condition, many fans became deeply worried about Joanna and her unborn child. Social media quickly turned into a storm of concern, speculation, and emotional messages. Some people prayed for the family. Others tried to analyze the ultrasound image themselves, even though they had no medical training. Rumors began spreading rapidly across different platforms, creating a wave of anxiety among fans who cared deeply about the Gaines family. As the discussion continued to grow, medical professionals began stepping in to address the situation. One of the voices that helped calm the public conversation was Dr. Nicole Safier, a physician who explained that diagnosing a medical condition from a single ultrasound image posted online is extremely unreliable. She reminded people that ultrasound images can sometimes show shadows, shapes, or reflections that look unusual but are actually normal. Ultrasound technology works by sending sound waves through the body. These waves bounce back to create an image, but the results can vary depending on the angle, lighting, and equipment used during the scan. Dr. Safier emphasized that only the doctors directly caring for the patient have access to the full medical picture. They see multiple scans, run tests, and carefully evaluate the baby's development over time. A single photo shared on social media simply cannot provide enough information to make a medical diagnosis. Her explanation helped reduce some of the panic surrounding the situation. Still, the experience reminded Chip and Joanna of something important. Living life in the public means that even the most personal moments can quickly become public debates. A private family milestone had suddenly turned into a global conversation. Despite the online speculation, the pregnancy continued normally. In June 2018, Joanna gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The couple named him Crew Gaines, and his arrival marked a joyful new chapter in their lives. The birth of Crew was about more than just welcoming another child into the family. In many ways, it changed how Chip and Joanna looked at their future. Before Crew was born, the couple had been working at an intense pace for years. Their television show was extremely popular, and the Magnolia brand was expanding rapidly. They were constantly filming episodes, managing businesses, and traveling for work. Their schedule was packed almost every day. But the arrival of their youngest child caused them to pause and reflect on what truly mattered most. They realized that they did not want to miss the small and meaningful moments of his childhood. When their older children were young, the couple had been busy building their careers. Although they loved their family deeply, the demands of fame and business sometimes meant sacrificing quiet time at home. With Crew, they wanted something different. He became the reason they began reevaluating their priorities. Instead of focusing only on growth and success, they wanted to slow down and protect their time as a family. That realization played a major role in one of the most surprising decisions of their careers. In 2017, when their show Fixer Upper was at the peak of its popularity, Chip and Joanna announced that the upcoming season would be their last. For many fans, the announcement came as a shock. The show had become one of the most successful programs on television. Their renovations, their humor, and their family moments had captured the hearts of millions. Walking away from such success seemed almost unbelievable. But behind the scenes, the decision made perfect sense. Joanna's health had been under strain for years because of her chronic back condition. Long filming days, construction work, and constant travel were putting increasing pressure on her body. At the same time, her pregnancy with Crew was considered higher risk because she was 40 years old. Doctors recommended that she reduce stress and focus on her health. The demanding schedule of filming a television show simply wasn't compatible with the rest and care her body needed. Chip and Joanna realized they had reached a turning point. They could either continue chasing success at the same exhausting pace, or they could choose a healthier and more balanced life. In the end, they chose family. Stepping away from their hit show allowed them to slow down and redesign their lives. They shifted their business model so they no longer needed to be on camera every day. Instead, they focused on leading the Magnolia brand from behind the scenes while building a strong team to handle daily operations. For Joanna, especially, the change created space to focus on healing her body and enjoying life with her children. Crew's birth had sparked a transformation that would reshape the entire Gaines family. But as the years passed, another new chapter began unfolding. Their children were growing older, pursuing their own dreams, and slowly stepping into the spotlight themselves. As the years passed after the birth of their youngest son, Crew, life for Chip and Joanna Gaines continued to evolve. The couple who once seemed to be constantly rushing between construction sites, television sets, and business meetings slowly began to reshape their daily routine. Their focus shifted from expansion and fame to something far more personal: family, health, and balance. One of the biggest changes they experienced was watching their children grow into young adults. For longtime fans who remembered seeing the kids running around during the early days of television, it was almost surprising to realize how quickly time had passed. Their oldest son, Drake, had grown into a young man pursuing his own ambitions. Now, in his early 20s, Drake had dedicated himself to baseball while studying at the University of Mary Hardin-Baylor. Playing as a relief pitcher, his role on the team required both mental focus and physical endurance. Relief pitchers often enter games during critical moments when the outcome is still uncertain, which means they must perform under pressure. Drake's path had not been easy. During the 2024 season, he suffered a significant injury that forced him to step away from the field for an entire year. The injury required surgery and months of physical therapy, testing both his patience and determination. For Chip and Joanna, watching their son go through such a difficult experience was emotional. But by 2025, Drake returned to the mound stronger than ever. His comeback represented not only a personal victory, but also a powerful reminder to the family that perseverance can overcome setbacks. Their daughter Ella Rose was also beginning to build her own future. At 19, she had already started stepping into the design world that her mother helped make famous. In late 2025, Ella made an appearance in a project connected to the family brand, where she worked on redesigning a small mountain cottage built in the 1960s. For Ella, this was more than just a television moment. It was an opportunity to prove that she had inherited her mother's creativity and eye for detail. She carefully selected colors, textures, and furniture pieces to bring the space back to life. Many viewers were impressed by her natural sense of design. Some fans even began wondering if Ella might eventually take on a larger role within the Magnolia brand in the future. While no one knows exactly where her path will lead, it is clear that the next generation of the Gaines family is already beginning to shape its own identity. Meanwhile, their son Duke was finishing his high school years. At 17, he was also passionate about baseball, just like his older brother. Duke played as a left-handed pitcher and also spent time in center field, making him a valuable player on his school's team. Left-handed pitchers are often highly sought after in baseball because their throwing angle can be more challenging for many hitters to face. As Duke prepared for graduation in 2026, he continued focusing on developing his athletic skills and deciding what direction his future might take. Their youngest daughter, Emmy Kay, reached an important milestone as well. In January 2026, she celebrated her 16th birthday. Turning 16 is often seen as a major step toward independence for teenagers. For Emmy, it meant learning to drive and gaining the freedom to travel to school and activities on her own. For Joanna, watching her youngest daughter reach this stage of life was emotional. It marked the end of an era when all her daughters were still little girls living fully under her care at home. While the older children were moving forward into adulthood, Crew remained the energetic young child at the center of the household. Being much younger than his siblings created a unique family dynamic. Chip and Joanna often describe the experience as almost like parenting a second generation. One small moment from Crew's life even caught the attention of fans online. At school, he had brought seaweed snacks in his lunchbox. Some classmates teased him because the food looked unusual compared to what most kids were eating. Instead of feeling embarrassed, Crew responded in a thoughtful way. He decided that the next day he would bring extra seaweed snacks so that everyone in his class could try them. His simple act of kindness reflected the values his parents had tried to teach him: confidence, generosity, and the courage to be different. While their children continued growing and discovering their own paths, Chip and Joanna were also working on maintaining Joanna's health. After her second back surgery in 2022, it became clear that she needed to be careful about how she approached both work and everyday life. Years of physical strain had left her spine vulnerable, and pushing herself too hard could lead to more complications. Because of this, Joanna made several changes to her lifestyle. On construction projects and television sets, she no longer performed heavy lifting or physically demanding renovation work. Instead, she focused on providing creative direction and overseeing the design process. A team of skilled professionals handled the physical labor, while Joanna guided the vision behind each project. This shift allowed her to continue doing what she loved without placing unnecessary stress on her back. The Gaines family also made changes to their health habits. They began focusing more on anti-inflammatory foods, such as leafy greens, berries, and fish-rich in healthy fats. Reducing processed sugar and maintaining a balanced diet helped minimize inflammation in the body, which can worsen spinal pain. These lifestyle adjustments were small but meaningful steps toward long-term health. Throughout all these changes, one constant support in Joanna's life remained her husband, Chip. While fans often see Chip as the playful and humorous half of the couple, behind the scenes, he has taken on a much deeper role whenever Joanna's health struggles became difficult. During her surgeries and recovery periods, Chip stepped in to manage many of the responsibilities she normally handled. He helped organize the household, supported the children, and ensured that Joanna had the time and space she needed to heal. In many ways, he became both a caregiver and a protector for the family. Another important role Chip played was communicating with the public. Whenever Joanna faced medical challenges or the family needed to step away from the spotlight, Chip often shared updates with fans. He managed how the story was presented so that supporters remained informed without exposing the most private aspects of their lives. Balancing these responsibilities was not always easy. Being strong for the family while dealing with personal fears about his wife's health required emotional strength. Yet Chip continued to approach the situation with the same optimism and dedication that fans had come to admire. Over time, the challenges they faced together strengthened their relationship. Instead of being defined only by television success or business achievements, their partnership became rooted in mutual support and resilience. Looking back at their journey, it becomes clear that Chip and Joanna Gaines built something far more meaningful than a brand or a television career. They built a family that learned how to adapt during difficult moments. From Joanna's cheerleading injury decades ago to the medical scares, surgeries, and the pressures of fame, the Gaines family faced challenges that forced them to reconsider their priorities. Each obstacle reminded them that success means little without health, balance, and time with the people you love. Today, their story continues not as a tale of constant fame, but as a reminder that even the most successful individuals must sometimes step back and listen to their bodies. In the end, the most important thing Chip and Joanna Gaines ever created was not a renovated house or a popular television show. It was the strong, supportive family they built together.